Today's lesson is about isometric sketching. Isometric sketching or isometric projections are a type of technical drawing that you can do either by hand on isometric graph paper or on the computer using a CAD program. Isometrics show objects in 3 dimensions. So you can see the height, width, and depth of an object. The sides are all proportional, so make sure that you're really thinking about proportionality still in your sketching. The difference between isometric and freehand sketching, there are a few of them. This one is more formal and more technical than freehand sketching, which is just a quick way to get your ideas down on paper. They also use different kinds of paper. So freehand sketching we did on regular graph paper, and mostly that was just to help guide our vertical and horizontal lines. This sketching, isometric sketching, is done on isometric paper, and if you look really closely you can see that they are triangles on this paper. There are vertical lines for vertical edges, and then instead of horizontal lines there are diagonal lines. So what you see in real life as a horizontal edge of width or depth would be represented on isometric paper as a diagonal. The diagonals are 30 degrees above the horizontal. So if you were to do isometric sketches on regular paper, you would need to use a protractor to make sure that your horizontal edges of width and depth are shown at 30-degree angles from the horizontal versus exactly horizontally. So using a protractor could be really time-consuming and a little bit more difficult, so it's just easier to use the isometric paper that you have access to make your life just a bit easier. So I have several examples here of things that we can draw in isometric view. We're going to start with the top left image, which is a photograph of a puzzle piece that I actually have that I made when I was teaching like 6 years ago. And so we're going to start with this. The photo is not spectacular, but it shows you the depth, the width, and the height of the object, so we should be able to put it on isometric paper. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with the edge that's closest to us, and I always start with vertical because it's just easier that way. So I'm going to start with this point right here in the front, and I think if I put that here I should have just enough space to get this image in. This is a 3/4 inch cube, so all of the edges are the same length, and we're going to use 2 lines on each for each length. So 2 lines on our paper is 1 block. So that's our scale. That's what we're going to do. So this is 1 block tall from here down. So I'm going to do 2 little segments vertically on my isometric paper. So 1, 2. Okay, so that matches this segment here in the front. Now from the bottom and the top I go in both directions the same amount, right? 1 block. So I'm going to go 2 lines in either direction from the top and the bottom. 2, 2, 2, 2. Then, if I follow this along down here on the right-hand side, I end up at this vertical edge. So I'm going to connect those. And if I go to the back, to the left, I end up at a vertical edge also. So I'm going to connect those. All right, so that is 2 faces of the first cube. What I would like to do now is go from the very back, along this very back edge here. So you can see I have a straight line, and it is 1, 2, 3 blocks. So that's going to be 6 lines. It's coming out of the top left corner, and it's going to follow a diagonal for 6. So here's the top left corner, and I'm going to follow the diagonal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is the last corner in the back, right? Now, from that same corner, I could see that I come on a diagonal towards the front, towards the right, 1 block. So I'm going to do 2 lines on my paper. Then I come back towards the front for 1 block. So diagonal for 2 lines. That one went a little over. Now, that takes care of that particular part. Let's come back towards the front. And here is our right vertical line, right? It matches this right vertical line. So I have 1 line out of the top and 1 line out of the bottom for 1 block to the right. So I'm going to come over here on the diagonal. 2 lines is 1 block. 2 lines is 1 block. Then I have a vertical edge to connect them. All right. Now, from that vertical edge out of the top, I go up to the right 1 block, and from the bottom, I go to the right 1 block. So, out of the top to the top upper right 1 block, from the bottom parallel 1 block. Then I have a vertical edge. So connect that. Now, out of the top, I can't see what the bottom's doing, but out of the top, I go back till I hit the line that should already be there. So I'm going to come back to that intersection. And then there's one more part, and it's hard to see, but you can tell by looking at the sketch there's something missing here because it feels unfinished, right? You've got this top face just floating in space, but we know it has to have some sort of height underneath it. If I look in my picture, here it is right here. There is a vertical line out of that back corner where it feels like there's nothing, and it's just going to go straight down, and it's going to go down as far as it needs to go in my picture. Okay, so I'm going to draw it here. Notice it goes down and hits that front feature. That's okay. It's the scale that we drew and the angle. The angle in the photograph isn't exactly the same as the angle in the paper. So it goes down a little further, right? So we followed all the lines. Vertical line edges were vertical. Horizontal, the width and depth were at 30-degree angles. We followed along with our image. Notice I just wrote right on it because it doesn't matter. And then I drew it over on my isometric paper. I only stayed on the lines. You're always going to stay on the lines if, well, that's not always true. If you have a full measurement, but if you have half, like something went 1.5, obviously you would go off the line. But unless your edge is curvy, you're going to follow these lines and they're going to guide you. So just, you're not freehand sketching over here. So it's a little bit different. So the next thing we want to look at is our shading. All right, we did shading in our last lesson as well. And that mostly showed differences in texture, excuse me, texture and parts. When you're isometric shading, you're going to pick where the light comes from. So pick angle for light source. That's a G. I am right-handed, so my sun is always on the top right. That's just where I put it. I'm a sunrise kind of person. All right, so the sun's coming down from over here. So that's going to help me shade, because anything that is facing away from the sun is going to be the darkest. So the sun is coming from behind the object. So this face and this face would get the least amount of sun, because they're 180 degrees from the sun. The top would get all of the sun because the sun is up in the sky. I ran out of paper space, but the sun is up in the sky, so that will stay empty. So the top, let me get you a color that you'll be able to see. Top equals no shading, right? Because the sun hits that full blast. Okay, the side, the faces that you see over here will get partial sun. All right, so they are lightly shaded. So I'm just going to use a lighter color. No, I'm not going to use the same color. Let's use a nice pink. Oh, actually, let's stick with black and gray shading, right? So here, we're going to have light shading. I don't want to cover up my edges, but it's kind of hard. And then even this little face right here will get lightly shaded, right? And then I could, in a pencil it's easy, but I can go back over my edges. So when I sketch isometrically like this, I tend to just do object lines. I don't really do construction lines. And I think it's just the type of sketching. Oops. It's just the type of sketching that we're doing. I don't feel like I have to do construction lines. So I just do the object lines. So there we go. That is That's actually not too bad for me, considering I don't have a ruler. It could be better, though. There. So that is isometric sketching. And we're going to practice a lot because, I mean, practice makes perfect, right? So let's come down and try the object labeled here. It's kind of labeled as number 4. This is from your 12 isometric shapes PDF. So this is from the first document that you're going to use for your homework. So they're pretty basic. They're not too complicated. I just randomly picked 3. I didn't even know which ones they were for your homework, but I don't think this one was one of them. So what am I going to do first? I'm going to pick the edge that's closest to me. So pick a point or a vertical edge. Let's be specific here. Alright, so I'm going to pick this lower point right here above where I wrote isometric, and I'm just going to come over here and put it right there. Okay, so that's my first point. That's a little obnoxious. Make it a little smaller. Alright, so that's my first point. Then I'm going to look at the lines that come from that point. So what comes out of that point? Now I'm going to do a 1-to-1 because I don't want to make this too humongous. So this, I'm just going to count the little lines. So vertically I have 1, 2. So I'm going to go up 2. Now the paper triangles are a little bit bigger than these triangles. Alright, so they're just going to be a little bit bigger. Then out of the bottom I have a line that comes off to the top, upright. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to go upright 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then it also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that go up to the left. So I'm going to try to do this without putting my hand all over my screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now notice I have parallel, right? So out of the top I have a matching line that goes up to the left. Exactly the same length, perfectly parallel. So I'm just going to follow this along. Okay, and then they connect with a vertical. Okay, so we did the vertical line in the back. I'm going to keep working from the same vertical edge because I have another line that comes out of this point here at the top. It goes to the right and it goes 1, 2, 3 up to the right. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then I'm just going to keep working from there. So now it's just end to end, right? So you can kind of bounce around or you can go in a way that makes sense. it makes sense to me to go up from here. So I have 1, 2 on my way up. 1, 2. Then I have 1, 2 on the bottom. One, 2 going up in the back. And then it connects closed. That takes care of those 2. Okay, so I've got that square face. Now I can see from the right corner, top right corner here, I go back to the right, 1, 2, 3, and then it connects straight down with the bottom that I already have. So if I do this right, it should work. 1, 2, 3, and I should be able to draw a vertical line on the line. As I say that, I go off the line all the way down. So there it is. That's very ugly, but it's done. From the top corner on the back, I'm going to go 1, 2 to the left. And then you can see there's a face 1, 2, 3 parallel to the one I have that connects them. Beautiful. Now I could count, right? I could count over to the next block. But to me that could be more difficult. So what I'm going to do is start at this corner over here on the back left and work from there, because then I know that I don't have to screw up counting empty space. I can just count and draw lines. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the right. Then I'm going to come back towards me, 1, 2. Then I'm going to go up from both points. Right? Both ends of that line, I'm going to go up 2 because they're parallel. Okay. And then I'm going to, let me erase this writing because I know it's going to be in my way. Now I'm going to connect that and make the little square face. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 back and up to the right. Ooh, just enough space. And I have a parallel one. And then if I look underneath, I have another one of those that's parallel also that comes out of the bottom. So I can hit 1, 2, 3 there. Now I can draw a vertical line to connect these two. And I can draw a slanted line to connect the other two. Now I know that I didn't count wrong or anything like that. Like I didn't have to worry about that. The only line missing is definitely something here, right? Because there's this like weird gap and that one block is floating. So if I look in between, there is a line there, and it comes out of the back corner and just runs into the other block. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come out of the back corner on the line and just run into the other block. And that's it, right? So that's our shape. And notice every time I did tick marks over here on the right, I made sure that I wasn't skipping anything. So that's a useful tip if you need it. And then I'm just going to do my shading, and I'm going to use the sun that's up here already. So I know that stuff away from the sun gets the darkest shading. So it's my front faces here. And this little one. And this one. And then my light shading comes over here on the right side, while the top stays blank because it's getting all of the sun. And that's it. That's pretty good. All right, excellent. Oh, so what comes out of that point? And then you're gonna, let me just finish my notes over here. You're gonna continue drawing lines. And then you're going to shade. Right, so at the end you're gonna shade. Excellent. So now let's see a little bit harder example. All right, this one's a little bit harder. It has some slanted faces on it. So how do you do that with the slanted faces? Let's go for a different color now that I know that I can draw different colors. All right, so I'm going to do one block to one line again, like I did for the last one. This time, I'm going to go ahead and start with this corner here, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently because of that slanted face that comes out. So I'm going to just come over here and put a random dot, and then I'm going to do the two bottom edges. So I'm going to come out to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go back to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, good. Now, I am not going to do the slanted part. Okay, I'm not. I'm going to work around and put it in last. So from the very back corner over here, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Straight up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Vertical edge, right? From there, I come forward 1, 2, 3. I go to the back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From back here, I'm going to come 1, 2, 3, and it should be perfectly parallel to the one I already have. And then I could just connect it, right? So I've made a little rectangle here. Beautiful. Now I can do this front diagonal line, right? I have the point of the beginning and I have the point of the end. All I have to do is connect them with a straight line. This is so much easier with a ruler, but I think a ruler would, oh wait, no, I have a ruler. I learned how to use it last time, last quarter. So here's my ruler. And there we go. Nice. I'd use the ruler all the time, but it would take me forever. All right, so that's that diagonal. Now I'm going to go to the back corner way back here and go up 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to come back towards the front. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go straight down to make that a square. So that looks like that face. Then I'm going to do these two edges here. So 1, 2, 3, they both go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. They connect to each other. Nice. And then the last two lines are diagonals, right? We have this diagonal here, and then we have this diagonal up here at the top to close it all up. Shorter. So that one doesn't look too terrible. Man, I like that ruler line. And then this one comes down like that. That looks good, right? It looks just like it. Then I do my shading. So here's the sun over here, right? So the front gets the dark shading. I'm just going to scribble it in. Not as good as it would be for real, but front, right? This face matches that one. And then I'm going to color in the other one a little bit lighter. Not the tops, but the sides, right? So the sides get a little bit lighter shading. And there you go. That's another isometric. Like I said, on my paper I would actually make this look like good shading that covers in the whole thing, but for the sake of time. So that's another one. That was a little more difficult because of the slanted lines. So do the slanted lines after you've done enough to get the starting point and the ending point. So I'm going to write that over here as a little note. Do straight edges. That's not how you spell edges. Until you get starting and ending points of slant. Then do slants last. All right, there. That's a good note for slants.